Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a OnlyFans commentary, OnlyFans discussion, part 3. I think I'm just gonna do this like an after show kind of thing after the show, especially when I go partake in the live discussion with Shaki. I think doing a follow video like this will be my new MO, at least for the most part. I'm gonna try to keep doing these as long as the show airs, and I may do these for other shows, especially the ones I react to on Patreon, to kind of give the ones who aren't patrons a kind of idea of how I feel if they haven't seen it, and whatnot. But I want to talk about OnlyFriends. The new reaction is up for episode 4, so if you haven't seen that, please go do so first and then come back here so we can discuss and chit chat. I'm excited because if you see my reaction, you know that I have a newfound love for Mew and Top. They are my favorite characters in the whole show so far. And let me explain that because, you know, if you guys know, I have a Discord server and we talk about the shows and whatnot. And the reason I made my initial the OnlyFans discussion video is because of the replies and the commentary on the characters in the episodes thus far, and I just was not comprehending. I wasn't agreeing. It wasn't making sense. And not saying that their feelings on the subject matter are wrong, because they were making their points. It just, I think what it was is that no one's considering everyone's actions when it came to formulating an opinion on the characters. You know what I mean? And let me give you an example of how I feel about, let's say, Top. So Top, I really like. I think him sleeping with Boston was not a good look. It was not. But I will admit that I'm not up in arms because he wasn't cheating on anyone. He's a single man doing that. But what is really telling is that it took Boston doing all those stunts and shows to get Top to give in and bust down. And I know I saw some comments saying like, "Oh, he wanted to," and that his how he fell for the trick was so easy, but he really wanted to do it. I'm like, well, he could have gotten that nookie when Boston first brought it up in the bathroom at the club. He was like, no, I'm good. And then he ended up making, or convincing Mew in some ways to break up with Top. And then that's when Top started to like give in a little bit in the shower. And then the whole plan of pitting Top against Ray and his planting seeds of doubt, showing that picture, it just sent Top over the edge. And it took all that. It wasn't Top actively out here sleeping with other people just to do it because he wants to play Mew, or that he can't control himself. It was lots of factors that went into it, and that factor was Boston. But even with, you can say, well, he still should have went to Mew and talked to him. He should have. Yeah, he probably should have. But in the episode 4, like I said, it's a testament to his character. How he is he blamed himself. He was like, "Oh, it was my fault that happened." So check. He told him off and really got him together and told him to stop what he was doing, and he's done with him. I think for me that gives Top more credibility than you guys are willing to give him. I also think that the fact he respects Mew's boundaries, like he doesn't want to just bust down, and he wants to wait for that. So he's waiting for that. He's bonding with him, hanging out with him on these dates, and learning more about him. He's getting along with his friends for the most part, around the friend group. He's helping them with that school assignment. Um, and in that scene where that guy came up to him in the silent disco, was like, "Oh, you've been ghosting, you haven't been responding, you've been out in the clubs." Also shows his character, like what he's really about. I think his whole playboy persona that we are being told about by from Boston, and I guess some other characters might have said some things, doesn't ring true to what we're seeing him be in the show. And I'm not saying he's not in that playboy life. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those allegations and his sleeping with Boston don't define his character. I feel like everything else does. Because even when he slept with Boston, he felt guilty and he, you know, took accountability for it. That says a lot. And then him bonding and respecting oh boy is also very telling. I like their like dynamic with each other. They seem to really like each other. Him telling him about the drug use and cocaine. I mean, he was kind of reluctant because it's kind of like I feel like you guys really want him to tell him all his tea, everything up front and be all honest, but sometimes that's not worth it to a person that ended up breaking up with you in the beginning. Like he broke up with him to start over. That's still, as much as Mew should protect his peace, Top should also, because like that's wild that you want him to explain everything to Mew from jump, always, forever. It just seems a bit much to ask for this very new relationship that he's building with him. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like y'all asking for way too much. Um, Now, as far as him telling Mew about what happened with Boston, I don't know how to feel about that. Part of me is like it would be in good faith to do so in some ways, but I don't know what he would gain from doing that. Because like you might gain his trust, but what why are you why would you need to gain his trust? Why wouldn't he trust you already? You've been forthcoming and honest with everything he's asked you, that he's asked you. So I guess I don't know. I feel like it would be a good look in some ways to be like, hey, the reason I question you, because he did apologize for questioning Mew so hard about Ray, which I also think is very telling. Like he was a bit wild for even coming at him sideways about Ray and kind of being more like being acting possessive, or not possessive, but like kind of like jealous and kind of being like, "Are you sure? You told me you ain't sleeping with him. Are you like?" And the fact that he stopped, apologized for that, and said he was wilding on that, I really like, because he was wilding on that. He was wrong for doing that. I agree, but the fact that he apologized immediately afterwards is very telling. That's the thing. These characters are doing things, right? And you're like, oh, that is an error in judgment. But them taking accountability, fixing it, really analyzing their inner feelings about it, and trying to be a better person for whatever reason is, to me, makes them very likable. That's why I liked Hop so much. Especially after this episode, I was like, wow, he's really a cool, chill individual. Yeah, he may get a little bit of skeletons in his closet, but no more than anyone else. You know what I mean? And then segueing into Mew, I really like Mew. One thing I will say, I guess in my mind, based on how his character is compared to everyone else, I guess he came off a bit more prudish, so I was really surprised how casual he was about talking about, you know, Top sleeping with other people, or, he was relatively unfazed mostly with the whole drug use. I mean, he was upset and was like, don't do that because yada yada yada, but he didn't seem, I don't know. You would think he'd be more jealous and upset. Like he brought up the fact that Top didn't introduce him as his boyfriend, even though he'd been telling everyone that's not his man. To that guy at the silent disco, he felt kind of jealous in a ways. But he didn't act out at that moment. And even when he brought it up, he wasn't too aggressive, which to me it makes sense, especially if you're not actually with someone. It's okay to have these open, honest conversations without getting hostile or kind of getting into your feelings. Um, to talk in that kind of way, I just appreciate it so much about his character. And plus, his character really grew on me. How he was such a good friend to Ray in multiple different ways, and also him standing his ground against Ray's romantic, I guess, sexual advances. He's like, "Look, I'm not about this. No, ma'am, Miss Pam." And he was really upfront with his feelings on that and his stance. He had so much conviction, right? He was very assertive when it came to this, and you can tell he really cares for his friend so much. But he is not with having to take care of him all the time because he's drinking so much, or dealing with him, kissing him. Like he really is standing his ground, which also is, it really tells you a lot about his character. And I really like that. He's not this meek, naive guy, even though he does feel that way. And I also like that, the fact he explained to Top that he felt a bit, inexperienced. That maybe he's not the right guy for Top because he is not, sexually experienced or has a certain lifestyle that Top might be used to. I like that he divulged that. It just makes him feel more of a layered, real person, because that is true. Like you can be very confident, stand your ground, but also feel insecure. You can be very loving, but also can be very assertive. Like you can be multiple things at once. I think that in these shows, and I guess in real life, people kind of feel like you're a hypocrite, or kind of feel like you need to do a certain thing because you said this. And I'm gonna play a clip right now from a this guy who reviews anime. He reviewed Mobile Suit Gundam or one of the Gundam shows, and listen to the clip. Here's the clip.
Matter altogether, and what's left in the wake of that conflict will end up defining your legacy. And just because you may be a perfect soldier doesn't mean that's all you have to be. We as human beings are hypocritical simply because we hold beliefs. There's no room for progress when you believe in something. The nature of belief is black and white, rigid, sound, and unchangeable. Yet because we learn through experience, the beliefs we hold inevitably change as well, causing us what could be considered a crisis of character. What was once the right thing to do doesn't always stay that way or apply to every single situation. Laws don't suit every case or scenario, and loyalties are subject to change given circumstance. So how can we call them loyalties at all? I mentioned how confusing Gundam Wing can be, and it certainly is, and that is because all perspectives are valid. What you hold to be true can mean nothing to another person who doesn't adhere or conform to your perspective. Though the world continues to grow more homogenous due to globalization, we can see how different a worldview can be if we look back at the many and varied nations of.
So with this, I feel like lots of times, because characters can flip-flop with their actions, sometimes the actions are directly hypocritical, but sometimes they're not. Even when I remember seeing someone dragging Top for telling Nick about Boston's ways and how he is, and like, well, you're one to talk, you're just like him. I'm like, where did we see Top acting like Boston at any point in the show so far? When did we see that? I know you're typing. Oh, he bust him down. He sure did. But Boston, like I said before, had to do all these things to make that happen, and he didn't actively go out seeking Boston to get that. Boston had to do all these stuff in shows. And also, let's bring it back a little slightly tiny bit. The reason we feel like he is doing that is because Boston telling us. Also, your preconceived notion on what a F-boy is making you already go against the grain. Let's see face value. Also, even if we saw Top out here thotting and bopping in these streets, that does not mean what he said about Boston was a lie. He told Nick exactly the truth about Boston, which Nick already knows. He done showed him already. I mean, the boy is listening to audio files of him buzzing out someone else. You know he ain't about you, for real, all the way. So it's not like he lied. Maybe you don't like the messenger, and maybe that's your big issue is the messenger being Top telling him that. But he's not wrong, and he's not even in the point in the narrative so far that we've seen that he's acting just like Boston. So how dare he? That doesn't make any sense either. We may find out something more with the whole like Top stealing allegedly Sans X. That may be another factor in the mix that may go along with the whole F-boy thoughts, whatever you want to call it, narrative. But even then, we don't know that information, so we can't really go off on that. So that's all I'm trying to say is all this stuff, all these opinions are not really based on what we're actually seeing in the show. Is this kind of like it? Because it's kind of like what you think a character might do and how they are, and whatever they have done, that's all they are. Like all Top is someone who is sleeping with Boston when he's dating this boy. That's all he is to y'all. Sure, I guess be mad about that, but he's shown other things in the show that makes him more of a great individual than just that. And I would just like you guys to consider that before you have this whole opinion and before you build this argument. Especially since the show goes out as their way to showcase that. You know what I mean? Like, I even picked on something else I didn't realize before is we've noticed that Boston and Mew don't have any close friendship moments. They're always physically further apart when they're always hanging out. Whenever you see, like the times we see him talk to Mew is him trying to get into his head about Top, and that's about it. And I think that's very telling. I do think it is wrong for Boston to be playing his friend, but I don't see them having any type of closeness to the point where I guess it is hypocritical for him to play his friend and do that to his friend, but I don't. It doesn't. He's not shown any type of closeness or loyalty to the point where I'm upset at Boston for doing the thing. I do think it's scummy that he is doing it, but I'm not upset because I'd be more upset if Ray was doing it because they're so close to each other. They're like this. So like I'd be more like, damn, Ray, you really out here wilding against your friend that we've seen y'all bond with. But we haven't seen that with Boston, which is so interesting. Which I think subconsciously is why no one drags him. Like I've not seen any comments. People are dragging Boston for betraying Mew. Only person that's done that is me and Top. That's it. No one else is getting into him about that, which I think is very interesting. I kind of love that. I kind of love that because it's very telling. I think I want y'all to think about that. I want y'all to be like, you know what? Actually, I'm right. Not I'm right. I want you guys to agree with me if you don't agree with me, but just kind of consider what I'm saying. Like you notice that the show is not showing them together, and then like how we feel about Boston in that situation with Top. We're blaming Top instead of Like, why is that? And I think it's very interesting that that's something. Next thing I want to talk about is I think it's very interesting that we all want Mew to be like the secret mastermind. But even though that'd be kind of fun, I just don't understand what would be the goal for him. Because think about this. You know, like Top's goal is to be with Mew, so he is going along with wherever Mew wants for the most part, getting along with his friends, getting to know him, respecting his boundaries when it comes to intimacy. He's doing the things to get what he wants, and that is his drive, right? With like Ray, he is wanting company and companionship, and that's why he's up under sand so much. He is doing it in a way that's very aggravating with all the money and overstepping the boundaries of individuals and wanting to spend time with them on his time and doing what he wants to do. But he has an end goal. It's kind of vague, but it's implied that he wants company and love and companionship, and he's doing the things to get that to happen, right? And then Boston, he wanted to conquer Top, and he did all those things to make that happen. So you kind of get a sense of their characters and why they do the things they do. And the same for Mew. Now him is a little bit interesting because you know he's not the one who is trying to pursue Top, but he's more receptive to Top, and he likes him, and we've shown that he likes him, and he's checking out the boxes, and he's willing to give him a chance. And even with him playing his little game of him breaking up with him because Boston got to his ear, he still likes his boy, and is just trying to like, you know, for me, I thought it didn't make sense for him to break up with him and try to be like, I'm not gonna let him get into my pants. I'm gonna show you. Like that was a bit petty, but I don't think he's in that mindset anymore, especially after this episode. I think he really is just really likes his boy and really likes his company. And I joke about how he gets off on the honesty because every time he asks him a question, he got to answer. And he was like, ooh, right. But people were saying, I'm bringing this up because people were saying that he is a master manipulator when it comes to Top. And someone in my Discord was like, "Oh, there's a power imbalance. He wants power over him, and he's doing these things," which to me has a negative connotation. But Mew has not presented himself in any way as a malicious, mean person to do all those things. Yes, he was a bit petty for breaking up with him, but beyond that, I mean, that's even if you want to really get into it, that's really Boston is doing. But even after this episode, you realize no one cares about what Boston's trying to say, what Boston's doing, because he is wilding. But I'm like, it doesn't make sense to call Mew a manipulator to Top when Top is getting what he wants from Mew, and Mew wants the same thing. He's just doing it on his own terms. And I know you're like, well, he is telling him he'll give him some nookie, some good if he stopped doing the drugs. He's manipulating him. Okay, maybe, sure. I don't know if like stopping someone from getting drugs is the worst thing in the world, like you're trying to make it out to be. I do think using that as a reason, like leverage on that, is not the best option. I will admit that that's not the best option, but I'm not. That's not enough for me to be like, oh, he's a twist villain. Because what is his goal? And someone in the live feed was like, "Oh, I think Mew knows about Boston and Top, and he's just holding on to that information." Holding on to the information for what? What does he gain from doing that? a big gotcha. I'm gonna prove that Top was playing me the whole time. So he wasted his own time by doing all this to prove that Top is what people said he was. For what reason? I can't imagine Mew doing all that to waste his time. He has better things to be doing. Wouldn't you think he had better things to be doing? Because what would be his goal in that? What would he get out of trying to prove that? He seemed like the type of person to be like, if you playing me, I'm a bounce. I'm gonna take myself out of the equation. I could be wrong. I could be in my mind thinking that he couldn't have a malicious bone in his body. I think he can. I just don't think he would go out of his way to do the most like y'all saying he is or could potentially be doing. Because it doesn't make any sense because he has no reason to do that. Like characters need motivation to do the things that they're doing, right? And we've got to see the characters' actions throughout the show to see why they do the things they do. Or maybe we don't know why they're doing it per se. Like with Nick, we don't see why he's so attached to Boss and feels the need to be doing the most like he's been doing. But we know there might be some underlying reason. Even he felt scared that he's doing all this stuff when he explained to Sand that he was doing what he's doing. And even when he talked to Top, he felt, I know he feels a way about his own actions, but that's not something that's being said. It just, the body language and the expression really telegraph something of that sort. But I can't definitively say why he's acting the way he's acting or how he feels about himself. It's just something I can just pick up on based on what I'm seeing. Anything else I may say about that is just me extrapolating what could be. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You know what I mean? But I think people like take the shoulda, coulda, woulda as a fact or as a definitive thing, and it's not the case. We can only go by what the characters are showing us. And so until there's like a twist with Mew saying he's his master manipulator, just because we want to have a negative trait attached to all the characters at any given time, doesn't make any sense to me. He can just be a nice guy and doing what he needs to do to make sure he's okay in this type of dating world. You know what I mean? Like I think that's enough. And I'm not saying you might think that might not leave much conflict, but he will have conflict. That whole thing with Boss will come up. Like it's not that's not going to be a thing that happened and it's done. It's going to come up again, and he's gonna go against Boston. He may even fight with Top with it. That might be an issue with him and Top, but I also feel like that might not be, and that's just based on how his character is. He's like, well, we weren't together, and I did break up with you, and Boston did get like he'll probably be more understanding of that dynamic. I feel like Mew is that kind of person to be more understanding, even though he might be agitated or annoyed or even upset about it. But I think he'll be more like against Boston, and they may have more things going on because Boston probably like Top might have been onto something where he feels superior to Mew, but there must be a reason why he feels a need. There might be some more layers to that. Why he even recorded the video of Mew and Ray together. Because why'd you do that? There had to be a reason for it, not just having his back pocket for this moment. Because who knows what have this is in the past 2 years ago, so who knows if he would have met Mew would have met Top and like so it must have been another reason why he has that video footage. But like I said, characters need motivation. Characters need a reason to do the things. I think making these opinions based on something that's not even there doesn't make too much sense. Like I love a nice cheeky fan theory. I do. Don't get me wrong. That's what I'm saying. But everyone is having hard stances on the characters and having such intense emotional rants about them. I'm just like, but there's like 15 things to factor in before that opinion makes any sense, and none of those things that factor in leads to this conclusion. If you really being honest, but I'm not saying you guys can't feel the way you feel. Feel the way you feel. I guess I don't know, cause I feel like even with this video and the last video that I'm acting like my feelings towards everything is law, and that's not the case. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm just trying to make sense of everything, and a lot of the arguments and rebuttals and everything doesn't make any sense at any given time. And that's why I feel compelled to make these videos. 'Cause I'm like, I really want us to get into why y'all feel the way y'all feel. And I love it when someone's like, "Oh, I feel the way I think Top is trash because he slept with that boy's friend." I wouldn't like that. I'm like, okay, bet. You saying he's a bad character all the way through because of that one moment? I'm like, okay, that's wilding. But you not liking that action he did, fair. That's valid. I even agree with you. I don't like that he did that either. Like, oh my gosh, I wish you didn't do that. I wish you really, no, ma'am, Miss Pam. But I don't think he's a bad person, which I think that's what I'm taking away from this. Everyone's a bad person. Like someone says, Santa's a bad person for flip flopping and giving Ray mixed signals, which that doesn't make any sense to me. Ray's the one pursuing him, harassing him. He's responding accordingly to the harassment in an angry way, but he doesn't dislike Ray. He just doesn't like how he's treating him, which he lets him know in this episode. You see what I mean? I'm basing this. What I'm saying is from what we're seeing in the show. I don't understand how you're not considering everything. Like you're not considering Ray harassing that boy. Is that not? Do you not think that's a problem? I don't. I don't see. I don't understand that. Oh, I mentioned this in the live and also my Discord. Someone was like, some people were like upset at Mew for purposely ruining Sand and Ray's bust down session, and I'm like, we see in the episode, we see he didn't know about that, and why would Mew do that? He had no reason to do that. For what? Why would he ship his friend with his other boy, but purposely ruin it? Oh, he could have called his homegirl. He could have, sure, but his emerging contact is Ray. I mean, this whole episode 4, really shut all y'all up with the facts, with all the facts, all the things y'all were saying about the characters, and this episode really was like, even without this episode, your some of the takeaways are out there and not didn't make any sense. But this episode really shuts a lot of it down. I know people make some new ones since this episode dropped. You have new theories, new like everyone's trash or whatever take you're having. But I'm like, y'all, I don't know. It's getting a bit weird. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below on that episode. What I just said, if I'm making any kind of sense, am I rambling? Which I think I'm rambling. I probably repeated myself like 15 times. My bad, y'all. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel. What your thoughts on this subject matter is. Like and the thing is, I'm not trying to tell y'all how to feel about the characters. If you don't like them, you just don't like them. I just whatever reasoning you have to back up the reason why you don't like them, if it doesn't make any sense, I'm going to question it. I'm going to do a follow-up video if it warrants that, because I like these discussions. I like us going back and forth. I just like things to make sense, and if you can make it make sense to me, I'm gonna be like, you know what, points. And if you can't make sense, you just don't like what character did to someone else, I'm gonna be like, you know what, you're valid to feel that way. But bending the rules and extrapolating, like, I feel like most people think they're shrinks and like psychiatrists and kind of this whole thing where they know what behaviors are and what people are doing. Like they reading body language or reading these things too deeply to the point where it's a whole like thing. Y'all got degrees for that? Like I'm just, when do you all become psychiatrists? Like when did we do that? When did we all went to school for that? It's are you guys psychiatrists? Maybe that's why I'm missing that. And y'all like, well, actually, this is the condition of human behavior. This is what this means. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll be correct. If y'all can give me proof of purchase, a degree, a license, I'd be like, you know what? I was wrong. Y'all was right. Yes, Mew is manipulating. He is a mastermind, and he is a horrible person. The psychiatrist told me so it must be true. Sorry, I know I'm coming off antagonistic. Anyways, I will see y'all in the next video.